Hello and welcome to episode number 44 of No Whining. Today is France Day, and in honor of France, I have worn this shirt about the USA. I love to wear my American shirts, my American flag shirts when I am tasting French wines because I love to give the French a ton of crap. Actually, I do really love the French and I love their wines very much. So it is more or less a term of endearment. Also, this is from the 2024 Olympics that were in Paris, and there is a nice little map of France right there. So see, I'm supporting the French, but from an American perspective. Okay, let's get into our first wine of the day. This is a 2024 Domaine Vacheron Sancerre. This is a $50 bottle of wine. Now, white wines coming from Sancerre, in order to call themselves Sancerre and to have that on the label, must be made from 100% Sauvignon Blanc. Sancerre is in the Central Vineyards, which is the furthest inland wine region within the Loire Valley, the Loire being France's longest river. Here's some information from the tech sheet that I pulled from the Alliance Wine website. It says Domaine Vacheron is a prestigious family-run estate in Sancerre, with a history dating back to 1898. Today, it's led by fourth-generation winemaker Franck Vacheron, who continues to uphold the estate's commitment to quality and elegance. Produced from organic and biodynamically farmed Sauvignon Blanc, planted on sites with 45% Jurassic limestone, 45% silex, 10% marl. Green harvesting takes place in August. A white wine fermentation in stainless steel with indigenous yeast, which is very typical of organic and especially biodynamically farmed vineyards, for at least 4 months. The wine is aged on its lees for a period of 1 year in 50% oak barrels that are 1 to 3 years old and 50% in vat. Okay, that is that. Let's do this. This wine is clear. I'm going to call this a pale lemon green color. Looks to be medium viscosity there on the sides of the glass. Okay, let's do this. Schnoz before jaws, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. This wine is clean. It's certainly youthful. Medium plus intensity on the aromas, starting with Meyer lemon. Okay, let's go back in. Got a little bit of grapefruit rind in there for sure. Hints of orange blossom on the floral side. It's got some subtle grassy notes, which is very nice. Sometimes Sauvignon Blanc, you'll find where it has really pronounced herbaceous or vegetal aromas that can be a little bit over the top, a little bit overpowering, kind of throw off the balance of the wine a little bit just because it's so prominent. But here it's very beautifully integrated. Okay, let's dip back in one more time. Yeah, it has some mineral notes like flint, maybe some wet stone. I think that's it for the nose. Let's take it to the jaws. All right, this wine is dry. It has, I was going to say medium minus body, but I feel like this is actually, it's a light-bodied wine. I'm going to call it that. Moderate in terms of alcohol, probably around 13%. The acidity is really high, which we would hope and expect to see with a Sauvignon Blanc. The intensity and concentration of like flavors on the palate is medium plus, so that matches what we found on the nose. And then the finish, I'm going to call it medium plus. It's not exceptionally long, but it definitely sticks around for a while. The texture of this, it's just nice and light and crisp and lean. Like that's how I would characterize this wine. The flavors are very well defined. So even though we don't have a lot of flavors, even though we wouldn't say that this is a really complex wine, not all wines have to be very high quality. But when they aren't very complex, they have to make up for that in the purity of the expression of the fruit flavors, the aromas, and there needs to be really defined characteristics in that regard. This is lacking a little bit from my perspective in intensity as well as the finish, and that's what has me saying that this is a very good wine as opposed to an outstanding wine. But again, there's great purity in this, and typicity and basically the expression of the, what the French would call terroir, right? It shows its place really well. I'm going to say this is not suitable for bottle aging. I just feel like that would make it lose more fruit and flavor intensity without any appreciable contribution from tertiary aromas on the other side of it and flavors. Also, if the concentration of the fruit, flavors, and aromas in this wine declines, which it might with additional age, I feel like that might throw the wine out of balance because there's such high acid in this, and you need that fruit character, that strong fruit character, to balance the really high levels of acid. So this is a terrific wine. It's a great way to start this episode. Let us go to wine number 2. This is a 2020 Château Barde-Haut Saint-Emilion Grand Cru Classé. This is around $45, so very similar price point to the Sancerre that we just tasted. This is coming from Bordeaux's right bank. Now, while the left bank of Bordeaux is known for Cabernet Sauvignon driven or dominant red blends, the right bank is known for Merlot dominant red blends. Something else that you'll note about Bordeaux is how significant the variation can be year to year and therefore vintage to vintage. And that is because largely the weather there, right? It's a maritime climate. There is, for example, a lot of moisture in the area, which can be really great, but it can also create problems. It can create issues with fungal disease, just disease pressure in general. And sometimes, you can have years that aren't quite warm enough to fully ripen some of the grape varieties all the way. This is one of the reasons that Bordeaux relies really heavily upon blending and making sure that they have different grape varieties that they can pick from. So they don't just plant one variety and everything is about making those wines. No, they have a lot of different grapes that they can choose from to make these red blends. So they make sure to give themselves lots of options so they can kind of mitigate against that vintage variation to the degree possible. Here's some information from the producer's website and tech sheet. The vineyard is a south-facing amphitheater with a limestone base that is covered with a superb, very robust layer of clay. When the clay is saturated with water, the limestone absorbs the surplus and stores it, making it available again to vines in the event of a drought. 2020 was a highly contrasted vintage that got off to a difficult start. The year began with an exceptionally rainy winter, followed by a very mild spring. In this context, protecting the vines against mildew and managing the soil was a real struggle. The first miracle appeared in May, with dry and warm conditions during one of the earliest flowerings we have seen, 2 weeks ahead of schedule. The second miracle was on June 19th when the rain stopped and the weather turned dry and cool until the beginning of the grape color change in mid-July. It is at this point in time that summer settled in for good, with some spells of heat through to mid-August when thunderstorms provided some relief and allowed the Merlot grapes to swell. The later ripening Cabernets remained the size of blueberries until harvest, and the Merlots ripened slowly until mid-September. The result was a vintage harvested about 10 days early. Okay, here's the grape varieties. 85% Merlot, 15% Cabernet Franc. The average vine is 35 years of age. The wine itself is aged for 18 months in 80% new French oak barrels. Okay, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into it. This wine is clear. I'm going to call this a medium ruby in color. High viscosity on the sides of the glass there, and then medium staining of the tears. Okay, let's take it to the schnoz. This wine is clean. It's certainly developing. It has pronounced aromas for sure. I'm going to stay starting with, I don't know how else to describe it other than blackberry spice. All right, let's go back in. Black currant, plum, some dark chocolate is in here. This is really nice so far. Baked black cherry and pie crust. This is really nice. Getting red cherry cola, some vanilla violets as well. Lavender, some mineral in here like gravel, a little bit of graphite, actually a hint of that for sure. Some cedar, hints of licorice and cinnamon, and a little bit of truffle is coming through as well on the nose. Okay, I think that is good for now. Let's take it to the jaws. Beautiful wine, dry, full-bodied, high alcohol. The acid is really high on it as well, and it's got high levels of tannins, but they're plump and juicy tannins, and you've got this really, really pronounced flavor profile on this wine. Exceptionally long finish for sure. Like, this is really, really impressive to me. It's juicy and opulent with this really generous and beautiful mid palate. This wine is outstanding. It's got beautiful integration, especially for how much complexity this is offering up. It also holds up really well with that beautiful long finish of like plum and cedar and chocolate. This is amazing. Definitely suitable for bottle aging. It has the structure to allow for additional development of the flavors and bring in more of those savory aromas along with some of the fruit development. So I think this is just going to continue to get better and better. I love this wine. So let's bring both of these in and pick a winner. One of the things that makes this episode awesome is the fact that both of these wines represent the place that they're from so very well. It doesn't always work out that way. You can certainly get a Bordeaux and have no idea it's from Bordeaux or certainly the right bank, because it just doesn't express the land the way that this does, or the way that the Sancerre. You can tell that this is from Sancerre, like if you know what you're looking for. So I would encourage you to really, really pay attention to these wines, because they are so very typical of the way that wines should taste from these areas. But we do have to pick one, and I'm gonna go with the Saint-Emilion. I just felt that this was a superior wine. It's worth the extra $5 or whatever, in my opinion. But part of that is a stylistic choice, and I just really, really like the way this is put together. Some people would be much more on board with the Sancerre, and this is just more up their alley. So I hope that helps. I hope this makes sense. And before we go, make sure that you check out the links and the videos that I included in the description, because I go to a fair amount of trouble, right, to pull great videos that are sort of a follow-up for the education and helping you know more about wining from the episode that we're in. The vineyards, the land, the places, the area, it just helps drive all the information home and helps you appreciate everything so much more, in my opinion. I know it does for me. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I will see you back here in episode 45.